Lynn earlier talked about speaking a blessing. So let's watch a video that shows speaking a blessing in action in a huge way.
My name is Nicolai Oliden. I've been going to Crossroads for about 20-some years. I'm married to Jessica. We've been married about 1.5 years now. My dad is Sergio and my mom is Dana, and I have a brother and sister, Philip and Samantha. And I am here today to discuss a story about my dad and how he raised me, and just to honor him and say thank you for raising me to become the man that I am today.
One day, one of our friends, and I truly don't remember the name, but they gave us the name of this book by Robert Lewis, Raising a Modern Day Knight. So a couple of my good friends, Paul Shaniker and Mark Gorla, and I decided to buy the book and to really read it.
And we went on this course, Raising a Modern Day Knight. And it was a few weeks long, and it was just to tell us about how to be men and what a real man is. And it went through 6 weeks of classes with us, but it was a lot more than just 6 weeks. It really changed my life.
Basically, that was just the very beginning of what it is to teach a boy how to become a man. This process takes years. It's a friendship that you establish between the dads and the children, the boys at that time. Robert Lewis teaches us that ceremonies are very important in the life of a young man. It is, ceremonies are usually when you reach a certain milestone in your life as a man, that's when we come up with a ceremony.
There was the ceremonies that marked the different stages of manhood. You know, from page, where we're younger, and we move to a squire, where we have a little bit more responsibilities. And when we were in high school and going into college, it was kind of a middle ceremony where they kind of said, good luck in college and have fun and use the principles that we've taught you. They also gave us some tools and a pocket knife in case, you know, anything came up that we had to fix, and a flashlight to guide our way, and a toolbox to kind of keep everything together that we've learned. And that was just a great ceremony for all three of us boys, because, you know, we didn't have to guess on when we went to that next stage in life. They were there to welcome us into that next stage of life.
The ceremony for Nicolai when he became a knight, I had planned that years before he actually got married.
My dad honored me with the day before my wedding on October 30th, 2010. And we were at a family park, and my brother just took me aside and said, let's go somewhere.
And Nicolai happens to love golf. So what better way to honor him than do it at the golf course? So throughout the years, I had started to plan how it was going to take shape.
And my dad was here at San Marcos Golf Course, and I had no idea what we were doing, but he was just standing at the first tee box welcoming me there. And it was a different round. He carried my bag and he didn't even play. And the whole first hole, he was with me, just kind of guiding me and teaching me and reminding me of everything that we've learned over the years and everything that he's taught me. And he also shared with me what I do that makes him proud, which was great, because it was great for a son to hear that his father loves him and that he's proud of him. And it was just words of affirmation for me.
And that truthfully, I can say that that's one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And for that, I'm really thankful to the Lord for guiding me and empowering my son in that way, so that he can always just lead life courageously.
Then on the second hole, I see these two rowdy men coming up, and I look back and there's my uncles in a golf cart coming up, and I didn't know what they were there for. And so then I see them, and they grabbed my golf bag and they carried my bag. And then every hole, my grandpas came, and then my other uncles came, and then men from the church came, and then finally on hole 8, my best friends growing up, again, Danny and Jared. And as I'm approaching the 18th green, I see a group of people, and it was all of the wives and my wife and other close relatives that were there coming to watch me finish this final hole. And then my dad came along inside me and said, you know, I would like to speak to you. And he had an entire speech written out and went from our early years all through the things that he had taught us and mentored me, and just I've seen in his life. And he talked about what it was to be a man again. When he finally called me out and said, "Are you ready to be a man? Are you ready to take on these responsibilities? Love your wife with all your heart, love your God with all your heart, and do the best work that you can." You know, I just felt so, you know, empowered and excited and just respected by my dad for him to even call me out and say, "Are you ready to be a man?" And it was just a great feeling, and to have him honor me with a sword. And he had me kneel down before him, and he knighted me there on the 18th green. It was just an incredible feeling, and then having everybody pray with me. And I will never forget that day. It's the best day of my life, other than my wedding, of course.
Well, we are blessed to have Sergio and Nicolai here. Would you welcome them as they come up right now? God bless you guys. Why don't you go ahead and have a seat over here, because we're going to interview them a little bit. But, you know, I think what we need to understand is that God has created three institutions: marriage, family, and the church. Everything else is man-made, but those are God's institutions. And it always works best within those God-ordained institutions that He brings His best, His will, His purpose. And so in a family like you've just seen, when you have a dad who understands that and a son who is ready to receive that, it's a beautiful thing. And I want to just interview this guy. My name is Mark Fuller, by the way. I met Sergio for the first time. This is a story I want to tell. You and Dana came to Dobson Ranch over on Dobson Road, and we were there. And it was the Sunday we were raising money to buy this property. Their first Sunday. I'm thinking, well, they'll never be back. And that night, we had, say, come tonight, we're going to have a banquet, we're going to celebrate what God's doing here, and we're going to raise some money. They came to the banquet. I couldn't believe it. And so I was so intrigued, I said, I got to meet this guy. So I went to visit them the next week. And there in your kitchen, I had the privilege of introducing Sergio to Jesus Christ for the very first time. And so, that's right, give it up for Jesus. So, you're a special friend, my brother. And, you know, this modern day night, you know, I mean, we have a culture where we just kind of hope young men and young women kind of figure it out. But there's intentionality with that. What was it about? Yes, you were a young believer. And this guy, how old were you, Nicolai, when you... Were you about just preschool, I think? When we came here? Yeah. 4 or 5, okay. And Philip was born, but Sam had not even been born yet, right?
Yes, Samantha, our daughter, she had just been born. Yep, and that's when we started coming.
So you said, I got some responsibility here. It's not just about Sergio anymore, right? Oh, yeah. So tell us how you came. You had a couple friends that you know, that encouraged you to do this, but tell us about this modern day night and what it meant for you and why you took it so seriously.
Well, you have to know where I came from. I came from a family that my dad was pretty absent and hurtful, and I did not get modeled by him what it is to be a man, you know, what my responsibilities have to be. And I had no clue how to be a dad. So when this book came along, I knew that I needed that myself, and I needed that to provide the instruction to my children, in this case, Nicolai. And I'm very thankful for the study that we underwent because for many reasons. The one thing that I never heard from my dad is, I love you. And that's hurtful. But You know, God is so good because in spite of all the hurts and disappointments in my life, I was able to give to my son the love that I never felt from my dad.
Amen. Isn't it beautiful what God does? That's kind of the theme today. Out of life's hurts, our disappointments, failures, God takes everything and he uses it for his glory, doesn't he, Serge? And Nicolai, you're young watching this and seeing some changes happen in your family life. So what did all this modern day night thing, how old were you when, tell us when you started that in earnest and kind of the journey on you, because I don't, you know, it probably grew with you on that. Tell us what that meant to you.
Sure. So, you know, we went through the class when I was about 13, and I mean, I could care less about the class. I just, you know, was, hey, I have a chance to take, you know, spend more time with my friends and spend more time with my dad, who the first early years, he was a little absent, and then he came to a place where he quit that job and started another job, and he just was committed. And so I cherished that time with him. So I go through this class thinking this is just a 6-week thing. You know, we're going to go through this. We're going to the church. And, I mean, here I am 20-some years later, and it's completely formed who I am. And the things you learn are impactful. But the awesome part about going through this class with my dad, learning how to be a man, was I got to then like see him act those out. And I got to write that as part of my story. And now I have an 8-year-old son, and I'm like writing the story with him as well. That's great. And so just feeling that weight, feeling that responsibility, but being so thankful that I have the tools that we learned 20-some years ago was incredible.
You know, I come to mind the blessing, maybe the book that maybe you've read, but every child needs that blessing. You never received that from your dad, but as you imparted that to your son, isn't it beautiful how God imparted his blessing to you? You can start any time. You don't have to have that to give it. God has it for each one of us if we'll just give it away to others, and especially our kids. So there were other guys. You mentioned that in that ceremony, but it was the ceremony was just representing what had happened. What was the significance? I know this strengthened your relationship with your dad, but there's a broader community. We talked about God's invented family and the church. Those are his institutions. Tell us how those other relationships really have impacted you, Nicolai.
Sure, yeah. I'm extremely grateful for the other men that were in our lives and the men that my dad surrounded himself with, because you were able to see that there's no perfect way of doing things. There's no one way. There's one goal: love God, serve God, love people. But there's lots of different ways to do that. So seeing all these different men do things in a different way, but with that one single focus, one single goal, that was really impactful for me. And then being able to have a group of men that I could go to that was not my dad, because obviously in my later teen years, he probably was not the one I wanted to talk about some things with. It was just amazing to have that community. That was incredible for us.
I know we didn't talk about this question, but I want to ask this. You have had time to think about this, so I'm putting you on the spot. But having been through what you've been through, you're talking to people that are different stages. Some are feeling like, well, I wish I'd have known this when I was raising my kids. Okay, I get that. Some are just maybe not even married. What's one bit of encouragement you would bring to this group, to us today, about pouring into and blessing and what you've learned through this experience with Nicolai?
Yeah. Our lives, the way we live our lives, can be impactful in a good way to people. And we've heard Jan, when she was talking a little earlier, about the way that God was able to help her go through all of that. But God ultimately brings joy regardless of your circumstances early on in life. God can bring healing and hope. And when I look at, it's not just about me or Nicolai. When I was going through all of this, I'm looking at our next generations. I'm looking at, I want the Olidens, Western family, to be known, to be people that live for God. So that is my hope, my prayer, that these generations get better and better every time.
Thank you, Serge. Thank you, Nicolai, for not only modeling it, but encouraging us to, where we live, with the relationships we have, to pour into the next generation. We love you guys. May this continue from generation to generation to generation for the glory of God. Put your hands together for these guys one more time.